Okay, so first thing, you just want to note the homework for Tuesday, right? So you're going to be reading the next chapter of Writing Analytically. Again, like if you do not have access to the book yet, let me know so that we can arrange something. And then you're going to do assignment 1 on pages 36 and 37, right? So at the end of chapter 1. It's going to be 500 words long. And I want you to use as your subject a single paragraph or small chunk of text from the Seneca essay in Reading the World, right, on liberal and vocational studies. So you're going to be doing the, what the textbook calls the method on a small sample from this Seneca essay. And I also want everybody just to remember to do this, right? Every time we do a reading from Reading the World, you're also going to submit to me at least 3 words that you had to look up with their definitions, right? Because as I think I said last time, right, one of the surest signs of intelligence is recognizing the limits of our knowledge, right? It's always better to look something up than to flounder in ignorance. Okay, so does anybody have any questions about the assignment?
Do we include the 3 words at the end of the 500 words?
No, in fact, I'll show you now where to turn everything in. Because some of you may be used to using Georgia View, some of you may not. So, did that turn on? Of course it did. So a running theme in this course is going to be my frustration with and struggles with technology. So you will hear a lot of kicking and cursing every time I have to turn the machine on. Right, so let's change this to student view. We'll wait for that to wake up. There are 2 things in Georgia View that I want to show you guys. So first, all right, when you go to the Assessments tab up here, you click on Assignments. Right, all of the assignments that you can submit now will be outlined in blue, right? You just click on the link, and it'll allow you to upload the assignment. So this is assignment 1, page 36, right? The link for that is open. You will submit the vocabulary words as a separate document down here. And the way those are going to be graded is going to be a little bit different from the other assignments, right? So we see each assignment is worth a certain number of points, right? So like each homework assignment is worth 5 points, right? The vocabulary assignments as a whole are worth 10 points. So those points are just going to accumulate as you keep turning in the vocab assignments. So if it says you've got 1 point out of 10 after you submit this assignment, you actually got full credit for that assignment, right? Right. It doesn't mean that you're failing. You've got a 10% for vocabulary. Does this make sense to everybody? Everybody understands? It just doing it this way was easier than having me list out 10 separate vocabulary assignment folders. Because God knows we have enough other assignments already. Okay, the other thing I wanted to show you guys in Georgia View. One more thing about the assignment. I do want everybody to know as well that I am willing to look it over for you before you turn it in, as long as I get it at least 24 hours before it's due. So if you get me something on Monday, I will look it over for you and give you feedback, right? This gives me time to look at it, and it gives you time to implement changes based on the feedback, right? Yeah, Rachel.
Would the writing, would the writing center know what you're talking about when you ask, hey, am I doing the method correctly?
Probably not, but you can bring the textbook with you and the assignment, and then they can help you with that.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, like I said, I can also help you if you want to send something to me. Okay, so if you click on the Content tab in Georgia View, it'll take you to a page that looks like this, and you'll see that there is a folder for each of the readings, right? If you click on that folder, I've put a couple of resources in here that can help you understand the things that you're reading, right? So I've got, here a couple of podcasts from BBC Radio 4 on Seneca and on Stoicism, the philosophical system that he subscribed to, right? I've also got an article from the Times of London's higher education section on what a liberal arts education is, right? So these can give you important context and background for what you're reading in the essay, right? Now, you don't have to use these resources. They're just there if you want them. But yeah, if you want a better, deeper understanding of what you're reading, this is a good way to go. Right, that's what it's here for. There's one other thing that I'm going to suggest that you do as you are reading. So I'm going to open up my book here to a random page. What do you notice all over the pages here?
Notes.
You have notes, writing, right? I do this for a couple of reasons, right? One, not every reading that we're going to have in this class is going to be particularly entertaining, right? A lot of it is going to feel dry. A lot of it might bore you a little bit. If you are taking notes in the margins and physically engaging with the text, it will help you maintain attention and interest. So what you should be doing, right, is spots where you have questions, write the question there in the margin. Where you see something that looks like an important theme, right, note that too, right? Where you see, repetitions, contrasts, things like that, make notes every time you find something that looks meaningful, right? And maybe, try to work out in the margin there what you think it's doing. If you're having a physical conversation on paper with the text, it'll help you maintain interest, it'll help you remember what you read, and then you've got a physical record of your thinking process you can go back to when you have to write about it, right? Now, I realize that this is a problem if you are renting the book rather than buying it, or getting it from the library or something, right? I will admit that I scribble in library books all the time and no one's ever caught me. Don't do that, right? Instead, you can use sticky notes, and you're doing more or less the same thing, right? But yeah, this is something I would definitely recommend that you do. You'll get more out of what you read if this is what you're doing. Okay, any questions about anything? We're good? Okay, then let's proceed. So I'm going to want to start most of our class sessions for at least the next couple of weeks with a quick close reading like we did with the Jonathan Swift passage from last time, right? So I'm going to give you today a quote from an old episode of Doctor Who. And so there are a couple of things that I want us to try to do with this, right? The first thing I want you to try to do is figure out what the literal meaning of the quote is. So try to reword it while maintaining the original meaning, right? I also want you to think about what the key words or ideas are. Right? What are the most important words or concepts here? Then, look for patterns of repetition and contrast, right? Are there words that repeat? Are there ideas that seem related to each other? And what sorts of things are paired up as opposites? And finally, I want you to think about what is implied in the quote. Right now, we remember from last time what it means to imply, right? What are implications?
That's not what you meant. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah, sort of, right?
What they don't say, what it means.
Yeah, so like explicit, remember, means what it says, and implicit is what it suggests. So just take your time, see what you can do, and we'll go through this step by step together in a minute. Let's see how far you can get on your own first. Okay, so let's just check in here and see how you guys are doing. So in terms of the literal meaning of the quote, what did you guys come up with? What does this mean?
Both the powerful and the stupid use confirmation bias. I mean,
But I
that's
got,
pretty much what they say.
Okay.
but also that they see their views as the facts, like they don't.
Okay, that they can't separate their views from what the facts are, right?
Right.
Okay. All right, good. What else?
I sort of said the same thing, that like, they're so one-sided to what they believe that if the facts counter what they believe or see as, the facts are probably wrong.
Yeah, and this is exactly what we talked about last time as confirmation bias or motivated reasoning, right? Yeah. What about, did you come up with anything different, Rylan?
I just said people tend to not deviate from their belief system,
Okay.
regardless of fact.
Which people specifically? This isn't all people, right?
The very powerful.
Yeah, the very powerful and the very stupid, right? So, good start, right? Now, what do we think are the key words or phrases or ideas in the quote?
I said, powerful and stupid because that's kind of identifying the kind of people you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
And it says very, so I mean, you can be powerful or not very powerful, I guess.
Okay, yeah, so the very
Stupid,
actually,
but not very stupid.
yeah, the very does matter here, right? We're talking about extremes. Good.
Right.
I also thought views could be a key word too.
Okay.
I said facts.
Facts.
Well,
Okay, yep, views and facts. All of these phrases are key. Are there any action words or phrases that seem to be key?
They don't alter, or just the word alter, I guess.
Okay, the word alter, right, this idea of,
They don't, and then they do. They don't alter the views, but they will alter the facts. So
Okay,
to
yep.
alter.
alter, do, don't. And what's being pointed out here about these two groups?
That they have a similarity.
Yeah, they have a similarity, right? So this,
Right.
one thing in common is also a kind of key phrase, right?
Right.
This is the one way in which these two groups are similar. Now, what's weird or surprising about this statement?
It's not something you would think about with, someone very powerful versus very stupid having something in common like that. But it does make a lot of sense
Yeah.
Right.
when you read it.
Like I said,
Uh-huh.
not that being very stupid can make you powerful, but being very powerful can in turn make you stupid.
Yeah, by blinding you to things you don't
Right.
want to or have to see, right? Yeah, so I think what this is pointing out here is an unexpected similarity, right? We don't usually yoke together the very powerful and the very stupid.
Correct.
But what the statement is pointing out, there is one very, very important thing, one very important way in which these two groups are alike. And this is their attitude towards fact.
Right.
All right, good. So what about things that repeat?
Some of the repetition I saw was like with varies, facts, views,
Okay.
alter. They kept repeating those words.
Okay, yep, very repeats, right? That intensifier repeats, again, reinforcing that we're talking about people at the extreme end.
Extreme.
And what else repeats?
Views
Uh-huh.
and
Views,
alters.
views,
Facts repeats. too.
alter,
I just saw that.
and facts. Yeah, in fact, and like alter, like facts and views kind of repeat in reverse positions, right?
Right.
The word fit,
Fit. Yep.
I think that's pivotal, or like kind of what he's saying.
Yeah.
Because if they're altering it to fit, then it doesn't fit. naturally.
Yeah. Do any of you guys know anything about Greek mythology?
What we learned in school.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a minor
Into it.
there's a minor character in the myth of Theseus, the Minotaur and Labyrinth guy,
Mhm.
called Procrustes. And Procrustes is an innkeeper that Theseus meets on his way to Athens. And Procrustes encourages all of his guests to sleep in a particular bed. And if the guest doesn't fit the bed, he alters their limbs so that they do. If they're too long for the bed, he cuts off the extra limb. If they're too small, if they're too short for the bed, he stretches them out. So what we see here are the very powerful and the very stupid doing pretty much the same thing here, right? To fact, right? I will do whatever I have to facts to make them fit this particular frame.
I would sleep on the floor. I would not be in that bed, y'all. They cut me off.
You're acting like you gave people a choice.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So what about contrasts here?
Well, the contrast, well, I guess it's not, because it's similar, but would be very powerful.
Yeah.
Because it's saying they have, I mean, one thing in common,
Uh-huh.
but if it's not that one thing,
Yeah.
then in contrast, they wouldn't compare.
Well, what we might want to think about here is whether there's an implied contrast, right?
Yeah, and it is, because it says, you know, the very powerful and the very stupid have one thing in common, as if that's not something that is like commonly thought to be true. And then it goes on to explain
Uh-huh.
what they have in common.
Also, like facts and views, I guess. Like,
Yeah. Facts and views is probably the key stated contrast here, right? And how are facts different from views?
Well,
Facts.
facts are kind of, yeah, like they're kind of concrete views that deviate.
Yeah, when we talk about facts, we're talking generally about things that are objectively true, right? We're talking about objective reality, things that you can test.
Or information.
Yeah, information, data, right? Yeah, stuff that basically, yeah, stuff that you can, yes, like this is something I can look up, right? This is something that is true. What about views?
That's somebody's opinions or beliefs, so
Right. That's
Yeah. Now, those views might be interpretations of facts, right? But the views are not in and of themselves objectively true, right?
alright.
Views are, yeah, opinions or beliefs. So that's the key contrast in the statement here, right? Now, is there also an unstated, like, are powerful and stupid each half of an unstated contrast?
What? Repeat what you said. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Okay, so powerful and stupid aren't themselves opposites, right?
Right.
But is there an unstated opposite to each of them that might be relevant to the way we interpret the phrase here?
I mean, I feel like when you hear powerful, you think, oh, someone's really intelligent if they have that much power. But 9
Okay.
times out of 10, someone who's very smart doesn't have common sense.
I'm
Okay.
thinking,
I've seen that. I'm sorry.
I'm thinking if like very powerful would imply that the different reasons why they would alter their facts to fit.
Mhm.
As to someone who's stupid who just does it because they're stupid, not because like
Sure.
they know better on
Sure.
purpose.
So like, yeah, someone who is powerful is able
And what-
to change reality to fit their views, right?
When I-
Someone who is, pardon?
When I read it, I immediately thought like powerful, entitled. Like
Okay.
they feel like they're entitled so that they can change the facts.
Yeah,
Right.
yes, the world has to conform to what I want, right? And someone who is very stupid simply can't see
Right.
the world beyond their views, right?
Alright.
What I believe must be what's true.
Right.
But what I'm saying, like, so I'm trying to get us to think about this in terms of like what we call binary oppositions, right? So binaries are these kind of common contrasts, right? These pairs of opposites around which we tend to organize our thinking. Right? Most of the things that you are going to be reading, even most of the things you encounter in pop culture, are organized around some kind of binary, right? Good, evil, light, dark, hot, cold, things like that, right? So can we fit powerful and stupid into any kind of framework like that? Something like facts and views, right? What are the opposites of powerful and stupid that aren't actually stated in the quote here.
Intelligent or smart would be the opposite of
Okay.
I'm trying to think of it. I guess the opposite of powerful would be like.
Middle class, poor, what, I don't know.
Yeah, okay, if we're thinking about, I guess, middle class, for like, if we're thinking about it in terms of income, we're probably thinking too specifically, right?
Yeah, my bad.
Yeah, so you're thinking about it in terms of social class there, right? So people can be powerful,
I guess powerless.
and powerless or weak, right?
Yeah.
So what then is implied about people who are intelligent and people who are weak? How are they alike? If the powerful and the stupid simply alter reality when they don't like it, right?
Right.
How do the weak and the intelligent behave towards reality?
They accept it.
Yeah, the weak because they have no choice, right? They simply have to take things as they are.
Right.
And the intelligent because they can see things for what they are, right?
They don't test the facts. They just say, okay, this is a fact, and I'm gonna run with it.
Yeah, or at least, when their views run counter to the facts, right, they change their views, right? So, to give you a very trivial example of this, right, my wife puts the parking brake on whenever she parks the car, like even if we're not on a slope. I always thought that this was pointless and stupid, right? But then she showed me a series of articles that said, actually, if you do that, it reduces overall wear on your brakes and you don't have to get them serviced as often. So, I changed this actually rather trivial view because somebody else proved me wrong, right? If I had stubbornly clung to my opinion in the face of evidence, then I'd be making the mistake that the quote says the very powerful and the very stupid make, right? So the implication here is that people who are intelligent or powerless deal with reality, have to deal with reality as it is. Those who are very powerful and very stupid shape reality to fit their own ideas. Like they try to squish it into whatever frame will fit. So does the quote seem to think that this is a good thing or a bad thing? Should the very powerful and the very stupid be able to make reality suit their views?
No. But
Yeah, it may be a reality, right? It's a thing that they do, but it's also a dangerous thing, right?
Yeah.
I
I think it's a
stupid
bad-
to describe. I don't think they would use the word stupid to describe a set of people if they were, I guess, four. The giveaway here is that the word stupid is used here, right? And stupid is almost always used in a derogatory sense, right? You
Right.
don't use the word stupid about people you like or respect.
they
Good.
could use like unintelligent if they were trying to be,
Yeah,
but no, it's stupid.
yes. Stupid is almost always an insult, right? It is not something you call someone that you like.
That's like, man, they were stupid. That's
Yeah.
not-
Well, but I think there's also, or at least in what like
You see those stupid.
well, I know that like in like 90s and early 2000s EDM culture, stupid with two O's was usually a compliment. But yeah,
Oh yeah, I remember that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good job. I think we've actually we've done the necessary work on this right now, right? So I'd actually like to try a little bit more of this with some smaller samples, and then we'll move on to something else. So if you have a copy of Writing Analytically, turn to page 25. If you don't, I'll write things on the board.
Such an email, like an hour and a half ago, I'll have to check it or not.
I was in class.
Okay.
Yeah.
But just heads up.
If you want me to respond on a Tuesday or Thursday, email me before 12 or after 3:15.
All right. Yeah.
Because, well, 315 is when we're done in here.
Right.
So at that point, you may as well just walk up and
Yeah,
ask.
I could ask you.
What page did you say?
Page 25. Okay, so the first sentence here I want us to think about, to try to pull the implications out of, is number one, the sidewalk is disappearing as a feature of the American residential landscape. So, try a sort of shorter version of the same process here, right? Go through, look for keywords, look for words that seem particularly important, think about what they mean, and then think about what's missing from this statement, right? What does it suggest without saying it explicitly? And when you feel like you have something, just go ahead and speak up.
What did you want us go ahead and talk about? Just what we thought about it?
Yeah.
So it seems like they're talking about like taking the sidewalk to add more land to the residential landscape, which they could have just said a house.
Okay, or maybe it makes a front yard bigger, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I put, like, the explicit meaning was the sidewalk is no longer a relevant feature, but I think the reasoning behind it is because people are walking less and driving more. So it's rendering it almost useless. People don't use sidewalks as often as they used to.
Yeah,
There's
and
a reason for it disappearing as a feature. It's just not used.
yeah. So what do you use the sidewalk for, right? You use it to get around on foot, right? And where you tend to, like, if you look even like around Americus, right? Like, where do you tend to see sidewalks here?
There's not.
Like, well, there's, like, on Felder, the sidewalks on Felder Street, right
Yeah.
on campus.
Yeah,
But
and
like
then
around I
Mhm.
guess, like public
Yeah, like
Not
base.
property, but public.
Yeah, like you find it in like the downtown section, right?
Right.
And then you find it like kind of in and around the historic districts. And then kind of once you get out of those areas, right, sidewalks pretty much disappear, right? So what does that tell you about the history of this place, of this town?
Sidewalks used to be used a lot more than they have now. The demand for sidewalks is just not
Yeah.
as much. 'Cause even laws have changed, like people are allowed to ride their bikes and be treated as like cars on the road, so
Yeah.
why do we need a sidewalk?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, the pedestrian infrastructure is the oldest part of town, right?
Right.
That's all in the, you know, even if you look at the houses around the historic district, right? Almost none of them have an attached garage or a carport. And if they do, then it's not part of the original house, right?
Right.
But yeah, most of the parking is on the street. So yeah, so the fact that the sidewalk is disappearing means that it used to be pretty like suggests that it used to be common, right? It used to be a
Right.
common feature of American neighborhoods, and now it's going away, right? Now, is there an implied comparison here if we look at the word residential? What does this suggest about where sidewalks are disappearing?
In the
That it's in
neighborhood.
residential.
Yeah, just in the neighborhoods that people live in, right?
Right.
So-
Also picked up the word American as a part.
Yeah.
Because it's specific to American, not.
Right, because we drive more than anybody else.
Right,
So
right.
yeah,
So you know, in other countries, they probably walk more.
yeah. If you go to like a new development, you know, say in France or in Austria, they may very well have sidewalks because people still walk to get around, right? So it's being described as an American phenomenon, right? And a residential phenomenon, right? So another implication here, right, is that people no longer live close enough to where they work to walk there, right? All right, good job. Let's try another one here. Let's look at number 3 on the list. This is a poem, a quote from one of the classics of American literature, the poem Mending Wall by Robert Frost. Good fences make good neighbors.
So, whenever I heard of this, it kind of made me think back to where I used to. So back whenever I was in Wood County, one of our neighbors moved out, and as soon as a new one moved in, they built a giant fence,
Okay,
like the wooden ones, so where you couldn't see their yard and they couldn't
Uh-huh.
see our yard.
okay.
So, I guess they wanted privacy. So what
Yeah,
I thought of was privacy, like
ex-
people want privacy instead of socializing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that is what a fence gives you, right?
Right.
So that is one of the things we associate with the idea of a fence. Good, is privacy. What else does a fence do?
It keeps what's yours in your area and what's theirs in their area, so it's kind of order in a way.
Yeah, it's associated with order, and it provides a kind of clear boundary between
Right.
It
properties,
keeps
right?
things in, it keeps things out.
Yeah,
So,
Things that order people are happy.
right. It's some kind of,
it depends on the people.
some kind of frame. Frame, you know.
Yes, a frame, yes.
And
where you-
also, to me, when I read it, this sounded like it, like the only good neighbor is a good fence. You know, like, almost
Uh-huh.
like when he said this, it was from like an introverted place. You know, he doesn't really want to be bothered. It's like the only good neighbor.
Okay,
is
yeah, good, yeah, right. Yeah, there is a suggestion
good
here.
fence is a
Yeah,
good neighbor.
yeah, of somebody who doesn't want to be intruded upon, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think introversion is a good word for that.
Another question I thought of is, are you a bad neighbor if you have no fence, or if you have a bad fence, like,
Uh-huh.
It is because the word good repeats, so it's like,
Yeah.
it's not a good fence. A bad fence to make bad neighbor.
yeah.
Uh-huh, or no fences.
No.
Yeah,
No
no fences
fences.
make no neighbors. But yeah, yes, so so I think then that we can try to infer a meaning of good in this context from this too, right? So what is good about a fence and a neighbor?
Keeps the boundaries.
Depends who you ask.
Yeah, but at least in this case, right? In this specific case,
Right.
good means respect for boundaries, right?
Yes.
Whether they're personal boundaries or property boundaries. So a good neighbor is one who doesn't dump his leaves on your yard and doesn't pry too much into your private affairs, right?
Right.
Right, a neighbor, it's a relationship defined by boundaries.
Okay. I'm picking up what you put down. So. So if you want, so if your definition of a good neighbor is one that does not intrude, has a respect for boundaries, then one
Uh-huh.
way to make sure of that is to have a good fence.
Yeah, and can the fence be maintained properly on only one side?
No, it has to be maintained on both sides.
Yeah.
depending on what's kind of
Right.
Yeah, it's a respect for boundaries. It's a relationship defined by boundaries that also depends to a certain extent on mutual cooperation, right?
Just look out, hey, you need to fix your side of the fence, please.
Yeah, paint that shit, it's peeling, right?
Right. Oh,
Is that tree one?
You're making me look like a chump.
Reminds me of like, what's that shit, Home Improvement?
Oh, yeah, where all you ever see, all you ever see of the neighbor is his eyes and his
That's all
hat,
you
yeah.
see is his eyes.
Mhm, yeah. I mean, we built our fence mostly just to keep the dog in, but.
Right.
All right, good. So one more of these I would like to take a quick look at. Number 6. Shopping malls and grocery stores rarely have clocks. classrooms in this building don't have clocks either.
Some do, but I'll get distracted because I'll just be looking at the clock like, can we get out of here?
No. I'm at work, I cover up a lot because I know I'll do that. I watch pot never boils, you know, so I don't want to watch
Yep.
it. So.
I would say, I don't know.
Yeah, go ahead.
What I first thought of is in shopping malls and grocery stores, you're spending money.
Yeah, these are places where you buy shit.
When you're buying stuff, if you see a clock and you have somewhere to be, you're not gonna be there as long.
Yeah.
If you're there longer, you're buying more things. So it's basically just a money-making thing.
It's almost like
Like subliminally
manipulation. So
making me spend more money because you aren't checking the time.
it's like, we hope
Yeah.
that you forget what
It's
time it is.
2 hours.
I really hope
Yeah.
that you,
Yeah.
like, there's no way in here for you to, like,
Mhm.
update yourself on time.
Yeah, and just leave with an armful of crap,
Which I
right?
mean, nowadays, you know, people have phones and,
Yeah.
watch
That's me on
and
Walmart.
different things. But
Well, think about too about like the way shopping malls and big, even like a department store like Walmart. Think about the way they're constructed, right? What else are shopping malls and grocery stores usually missing, at least on the interior, that might be related to your sense of time?
Windows.
anywhere,
Yeah.
yeah.
They're also missing windows.
Never thought about that.
Me
So
either. I'm
it's-
just sitting there like, oh my god.
Like
Yeah.
a hipster on a wheel.
So it is like a little self-contained world, right? That is designed to prevent you from thinking about how much time you're spending in there.
Anything but what's there.
Yeah, I mean, like myself personally, like I can't wait to get out of Walmart, right? When I go in,
Yes.
I really just want to grab what I came for if it's on the damn shelf,
Right.
and then get out.
Or I'll see something and be like, ooh, I want that.
Right, and then you see four more
Uh-huh.
things, and you're like, oh,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
want that too, and you just
Yeah.
keep looking.
Exactly. Yeah.
Before you know it.
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah, if you're not keeping track of time, maybe the implication here
I'll
is
tell you
that
something, Hobby Lobby is the worst. There's not enough hours in the day for Hobby Lobby. You walk in there and get out. It's-
Well, see,
have that point of view, but okay.
this is why you just don't have hobbies.
Yeah, there you go. No, man, there's not enough hours in the day for that.
But right. The basic idea here being right is that there's an association here implied with time and money, right?
Right.
And that if you don't have a strong sense of how much time you're spending, right? Time and money are both things that you spend.
A place that's like notorious for that is like IKEA. Like you walk in there and it's like I don't know. It's like like they're designed a certain way to where when you walk through, you have to walk all the way before you can get out, or kind of sort of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's specific to that particular kind of. It's like also like you may have noticed. I don't know how often any of you go to museums, but you may have noticed that every exhibit usually empties into a gift shop
Yes.
Yeah.
in a museum.
Or,
But yeah,
or at a theme park, like whenever you get
Uh-huh.
off a ride, like you go straight into the gift shop.
yep. Yep, I know, yeah, like a Disney World, they're all themed. Right? So you get off Pirates of the Caribbean, and it's, oh, hey, there's all this pirate shit that I can
That
buy.
was pretty cool. You want to buy some?
Yeah.
It's like a hole in your pocket.
I remember as a kid, like my parent, like begging my parents to buy me these stupid little pirate treasure maps.
Yeah.
Because I actually believed that, no, we're going to go up to New England and we're going to dig there and I'm going to find treasure. Like, yeah, no, you're not. No. But yeah, time and money are both things that you spend. And so the more time you're spending, the more money the implication that you're spending, right? Okay, so I think we all get the idea here, right? So I'd like to shift gears a little bit now. I want to pose a question to the group here, and I want you to just write out a short response. Just take a couple minutes, right? I want to know whether or not you think you are a good writer and why. And I'm only going to put one rule up here. If you think you're good, say you're good.
So you can't be like, oh, I'm good, but then there are these like flaws or whatever, like that could be worked on.
Just don't say you're a bad writer if you don't genuinely think you're a bad writer.
Oh, okay. Do you want us to turn this on?
I do want you to be willing to read it to the
Okay.
class. But you will not have to turn it into me now. Start finishing up. Okay, so who is willing to go first? Okay, yeah, go ahead.
I believe I'm a good writer because of the detailed explanations I write, but in the same breath I can get too detailed and start to ramble and get off topic. Then I'll find myself either having to rewrite it or create a way to revert or tie in back to the main topic.
Okay, thank you. Who wants to go next? Grace, go for it.
I think I'm a good writer depending on what I am writing about. I tend to get lost in detail and creativity more often than not. When I am writing about something I value or appreciate, I find that I produce a much better paper as opposed to something I don't care as much for. I could use more experience in the fundamental writing.
Okay, thank you. Who wants to go next?
I can go.
Go ahead.
So I think I'm good at writing because I've tested my writing abilities with hard subjects.
Okay.
Once I have a flow, I can finish an essay in 1 to 2 days and do good on it. I've written a research paper about men's rights to abortion, and it was an argument of a paper, and I got an 80 on
Okay. Byron.
The simple one-word answer to that question would be yes. I've always considered myself among those considered good writers.
Okay.
Because I've been told that I'm a good writer before I began writing, though, always why. And now
I brainstorm on scratch paper instead of just like actually jumping into it, because I find that I actually am able to write better before.
Doing free writing is key, yes. Okay. So one thing I will say, like this exercise may go differently than it usually does, because I will say, like as a group, you guys seem a little bit sharper than my usual Composition 2 section, which is a good thing, right? we like that.
You seem a good thing.
Yeah, like you're quicker to volunteer answers. The answers that you volunteer tend to be a little bit more thoughtful than average. So you guys are overall doing pretty well, right? What I would like you guys to do now is I want you, instead of thinking about whether you're a good or a bad writer, I want you to just make a list of what you think your strengths are as a writer. Not weaknesses, just your strengths, right? What are the things you think you are good at? Okay, start wrapping up. Okay, so let's go backwards around the room this time. So Ryan, let's start with you.
Okay, my strengths are like laying out what I want to write, like I just said, like planning.
Okay.
Explaining what I write, like explaining what I have, and then conclusion paragraphs.
Okay. Which is one of the hardest things to get right, right? You know, you get to the end of the paper, it's like, okay, what does this all mean? What do I do with this now? All right, good. Rachel.
Okay. So I'm good with details, comprehension of subjects, the time management, and creativity.
All right. Good. Grace?
I said vocabulary, like using more complex words to explain things. Explaining things. I use a lot of imagery.
Okay.
My writing tends to be understandable for others. People won't get confused or lost while I'm writing. Not straying far from the main idea of what I'm trying to write.
All right. Good. Corbin?
I also put detail, knowledge of the topic. I don't like to be misinformed or inadvertently misinform others.
Okay.
I'm a pretty deep thinker. I'm always asking why, you know,
Okay.
when, where, why, what, who. I usually use a fairly complex vocabulary when I'm writing, and I have a pretty good ability to relate ideas to everyday examples to make it easier.
All right. Good. So, did doing this feel any different from just describing, like just explaining whether you were a good or a bad writer? How did it feel different?
when I was writing, whether or not I was a good or bad writer, I had what I was good at, but
Yeah, you are all doing it, right? You are all, you said, I'm a good writer, but this is what I'm still not good at, right? You were still thinking of it in terms of the deficits you have. You know, even, Rylan, you were saying, like, I know how to do this now, but I didn't used to, right? So, yeah, you weren't thinking about the actual positive things that you are able to do. And there are 2 points that I want to make here, right? One is that, as with anything else, right, good writers are made, not born. Anybody in here play a musical instrument? Okay, what do you play?
French horn.
French horn, and what do you play?
the violin, piano, whatever.
Okay. How good were you when you first started playing?
Terrible.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine what the French horn must have sounded like to your parents when you first started, right? but you practice, right? You learn the scales, you learn the finger positions, right? You get better. I used to play the drums. I was a good drummer. I also play a little bit of guitar, but I'm a bad guitar player because I didn't practice. Also because I have short, stubby fingers. That's not helpful. But with a musical instrument, a sport, anything like that, right? Very few people are good right away. If you have to learn the rules, you have to practice, and you have to get feedback, you have to get training, right? Somebody's got to help you along. We tend to get this notion sometimes, particularly with academics, right? That if we're not good at something right away, then we're just not that kind of person. And we need to just give up and focus on something else. Like, I will admit that, I told myself for years that I'm just not a math person. I just can't understand math. No, it's not that I can't understand it. I just didn't find it terribly interesting. I didn't like math, so I didn't try, right? So your brain is like a muscle, right? It gets stronger if you use it. The more you exercise it, the stronger it gets. If you just, what happens to a muscle if you sit around and don't use it? Like, what happens to all these guys who played football in high school and then never exercise again?
They get fat.
Yeah, all that muscle turns to flat, right?
Not
Yep.
that actually cold lift, they just get fat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bad.
Yeah, because muscle turns into fat if you don't use it, right? Think of your brain the same way. The more you exercise it, the stronger it'll get, and you got to keep exercising it to maintain, right? Now, the other thing that I wanted you guys to think about here is your judgment reflex, right? Now, when you go, back when people were able to go to the movies, when you go to the movies and you read a book or you watch something on TV and you talk about it with your friend or your grandma or whatever, right? What's usually the first response you have to it?
I liked it.
Yeah, I liked it or I didn't like it, right? So the problem with both of those responses is that you're shutting down any kind of deeper thought there, right? You're not really looking, you're just sort of focusing on a shallow emotional response and not focusing on what's really kind of going on in whatever you're looking at. I'll give you an example here as well. Like, my wife a couple of weeks ago subscribed us to HBO Max so that we could watch the new Wonder Woman movie. And we didn't like it,
Y'all didn't like it?
We had liked the first one, we didn't like the second. Yeah, we thought that it wasn't very well paced, the story didn't make a lot of sense, and the female villain was, in particular, not very well drawn or well developed. Especially given, the cheetah is like the classic Wonder Woman adversary, right? And we just kind of felt like she was underused. But even though I didn't like this film, I was able to find something interesting in it to think about, right? So the film is set in 1984, right? So I'm thinking like, why? Is it just so they can make a bunch of 80s pop culture jokes and give people square haircuts and boxy looking clothes? Well, those are, like, how many of you have seen the movie?
I saw
Okay.
part of it, but I fell
Mhm.
asleep because I had the flu.
So you clearly loved it too.
Yeah. Dude, I was out.
But like, so you know, it's set in 1984, and if we look kind of historically at, you know, America in the late 20th century, like 1984 is kind of like what we would call like peak 80s, right? And the 80s were the era of peak runaway capitalism, greed is good, right? Buy things to assuage whatever negative feelings you have. Now, the villain, the main villain in the movie, is, he obtains the power to grant people's wishes by taking something else away from them, right? It's like, so yeah, you can have a Ferrari, but I have to take something else that you value in order to do that, right? And is able to get control of people's wills by doing this. So you can actually kind of look at this as a metaphor for runaway American capitalism in the 21st century as well, right? That this dream of you can have it all actually requires terrible sacrifices, environmental sacrifices, personal and social sacrifices, so on and so forth. So I was able to find an interesting theme in the movie despite not caring for the movie overall, right? So that's what I want to encourage you guys to do with everything that you read or that you watch. It's like, I'm going to be honest with you, like, a lot of the things I'm going to give you to read, you're not going to like, right? You're not going to find it entertaining, right? You're probably going to find Seneca pretty dry, for example. You're not going to love it. But find something interesting or weird in it that you can latch on to. And I think if you're doing things like we were doing with that Doctor Who quote at the beginning, right? Find patterns that repeat. Find contrasts, sometimes they're implied contrasts, right? You will be able to make meaning out of things and find something to be interested in about something, even if you don't really enjoy it. What you want to try to cultivate, particularly when you are still gathering information for an assignment, is what the poet John Keats called negative capability, right? And essentially what negative capability means is comfort with uncertainty. So remember this from our conversation about confirmation bias and motivated reasoning, right? If you go to a particular set of data with a pattern in mind that you're looking for, are you going to see that pattern? Yeah, of course, right? Because you're going to force the information to fit the pattern you already want, right? So try to come to everything that you read without those preconceived ideas, right? Let the data guide you to a conclusion rather than trying to impose a conclusion on it. That's what we mean by negative capability, and that's one of the big things that we're going to try to practice over the course of the semester. So I did promise I'd let you go a little early because we started 5 minutes early. So we're about out of time. Does anybody have any questions about anything before I let you go?
That assignment that was on the board,
Yes.
is that due tonight?
Tuesday.
Okay.
Yep, that's for
So
Tuesday.
we bring it back?
No, you will turn it in online on Georgia View.
Okay, like how you showed us.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. In general, I want to exchange as little paper between us as possible.
Okay.
In part because horrible diseases.
And does it say in your syllabus, like, what format of writing you prefer and stuff like that?
MLA format.
Am I okay?
Yep.
Grace, do you have the Pulse app?
Do I have the link?
The Pulse app? So that's an app, like you can download it and while you're